or leash in the morning.
Welcome to the Craig Willard Show. Welcome, everyone, to episode 1 of the Craig Willard Show. I have a special guest for you, Ashley Eisenmenger. Ashley is a college student and triathlete. As a result of premature birth, she was left with a significant visual impairment. Despite her blindness, Ashley has qualified for the Boston Marathon, and she is currently a paratriathlon national champion and competes on her college triathlon team. Aside from athletics, though, Ashley takes both her academics and volunteer work very seriously. She mentors high school students transitioning to college. She works with youth paratriathletes and coaches in various adaptive sports settings. I'm so tired right now. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm tired just thinking about all the work that you do. Wow. So tell me about this. So you, as a result of this premature birth, you have a significant visual impairment, and I'm really interested to hear more about this.
Yeah, so I'm a triplet. We were born about 13 and a half weeks early. And so as a result of that, the retinas and various structures within my eyes didn't develop fully. So I have no vision in my right eye, and then my left eye, I can see like light and some large objects, kind of depending on the contrast and a couple of other factors. But I'm pretty much living life with minimal functional vision.
So how did that, when you were growing up, how was that? I mean, for you, some people lose their vision later on in life, but for you, this is really, I guess, would you call it it's your norm? But how did you grow up to, from your childhood, if you remember, what was that like?
It's interesting. I can pinpoint 2 different times in my life where I kind of realized that like I couldn't see like my peers. But I grew up mainstreamed all through school, so I was in the classroom with sighted classmates. My siblings have much more vision than me, and so I lived life like any typical kid. I just happened to not see most of what I was doing. So it didn't really hinder my experiences. It kind of taught me from a young age that I would have to adapt to what was around me, which I think has led me to the successes that I currently have.
Yeah, there is no doubt. In fact, I mean, what we didn't put in your bio here is that you're actually even you've been on TED Talk, which is,
yeah.
How many people who are listening to this would love to be on TED Talks? And here you are in front of, a broad range of audience, and you get to speak. What was that like?
It was really cool. It was a great experience. It was through my college. So they brought in speakers from the community, and then we had a couple of student speakers, and I was really fortunate in that they chose me to be one of the student speakers. I'd never done anything that professional or that involved. I've done speaking in the past, but nothing like TED. And it was cool because it really stretched me as a speaker, but it gave me a really unique and professional platform to kind of share my story and to share a really cool message.
I don't know if you did that just off the cuff, or what was that message that you gave to those individuals from TED Talk?
The focus of my talk was the perception of adversity and how the way we choose to view the challenges we face ultimately is what helps us overcome them and can lead to more fulfillment within our lives. So it was cool. I had like 4-ish minutes to kind of like say as much as I could say, and I think people received it well.
So what's your perception specifically? Is adversity something that is existent, or is it something that we create as a sense of saying that we can't do something?
That question is twofold. I think everybody faces adversity in one way or another. I think based on the decisions that we make, that adversity can be more significant or less significant. So like obviously me being blind, like I didn't choose that, but that brings a lot of adversity into my life. Now, if I chose to respond negatively to my blindness, the amount of adversity I'm going to face and how I perceive the weight of that adversity will ultimately like make my life more difficult as a whole. If I chose to look at my dealt hand of cards in a positive way, which is what I do, I find more fulfillment, and I find that I've done more without sight than I would probably do if I had sight.
Sure. When it comes to success, when you feel like you're successful, what is that like to you?
For me, it's success on a personal level in like fulfilling goals that I've set for myself, but also success for me is seeing other athletes, whether athletes or just individuals in general, whether they have a visual impairment, a disability, or they're completely able-bodied, achieving something that they didn't think they would be able to do. I spent the last weekend in Wisconsin with my triathlon team, Dare to Try, working at a paratriathlon camp, and we got to teach amputees how to run, and we got to help athletes cross their first finish line. And for me, that's fulfilling, but it's even more fulfilling to see people realize that they're as good at something as we think they are. It's kind of like when their perceptions match our perceptions and the beliefs line up. It's really cool. And I think that that's where you kind of find success.
Well, and they probably look up to you knowing all of the accomplishments that you've had thus far, and that's just the tip of the iceberg to what you're going to be doing in the rest of your life. But, you yourself and showing that your blindness has not limited you. And in fact, there's so many people, you're so big in this triathlon world, and so many people know who you are, and what you've been able to accomplish, while other people have, even debated even doing the first, sprint triathlon or an Ironman. Here you are accomplishing these things like it's nothing. And one of the common things that I get is, how do you do it? How do you literally, not only do you push yourself, but how do you do that and smile every day?
I'm really lucky to get to do what I do, because I know there are lots of people that wish they could do this and don't have the opportunities that I've been lucky enough to have. So it's one of those things where like, I get to do this. I'm not forced to do this. I get to do this because I love to do it. And as a blind athlete, I do it with someone by my side the entire way, which I think is really cool, because you take triathlon that's typically an individual sport and it's automatically a team sport from start to finish as a blind athlete. And so I love that aspect of it too, because not only do I get to do this for me, but I get to share the ride with typically some of my best friends, which is really cool.
How do you select the person that's going to do that for you?
There has to be like physical ability. I need them to be faster than me. But there also has to be this like compatibility aspect of it. It's kind of like speed dating almost, You're like tied to this human for like a solid hour and a half, depending on the race. Like you really can't hate each other because you're pretty much inches apart for an extended period of time. So they have to be fast enough, but we also have to like each other at least a little bit.
That is absolutely hilarious. Yeah. So when, again, I'm only asked this because I get asked this a lot when I talk about you, because I do talk about you a lot, is, when you're in the water and you're swimming. Mm-hmm. So for those that are listening that aren't familiar, an Ironman or a triathlon is a swim, bike, and then a run, varying distances. But, when you're in the water, how do you connect it to your guide?
So I use a bungee tether, at my thigh, connected to their thigh. And the purpose of the tether is just to basically keep us in a relatively close distance, so that when my guide is sighting, I'm pretty close to her. Okay. Just so that we can stay on course.
Okay. Does she talk to you while you're even swimming? Do you kind of lift up and say something every so often, or you just roll with it?
We just kind of roll with it. Okay. I've developed a couple of systems where they'll kind of tap me on the shoulder if we're making a turn. We'll have discussed the course prior, so that I know like the first turn may be a left-hand turn, and then the next turn would be like a 180-degree turn. So I know what I need to do, and then she'll just non-verbally cue me so that we can, head down, get work done, that kind of thing.
I find it so fascinating. And you and I have had this conversation before in the past, where I say it's almost as if you have a special gift of seeing in a completely different perspective, but you see it's just different, but you are still so functional. I just think that's fascinating, that you are able to do such amazing work in such what what I would call a very tough sport, and do it at such a level. I'm just blown away by the ability that you can do that. Wow.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So what, obviously it doesn't seem like much scares you, but what if there was one thing that scared you, what is it?
It's funny that you mentioned that. When I got into the sport, I was actually terrified of the swim. Um, when you can't see and you stick your face in water, you take away your ability to hear. So like I'm experiencing the equivalent of like sensory deprivation. Like I don't have my sight and I don't have my hearing to go off of, and those are your primary senses for informational intake. So it took me a little bit to get over that. But I think now, outside of triathlon, I think like my biggest fear in life is that I'm not going to, or that I'm not going to be able to do all the good that I can. I'm a very like driven person. Obviously, I know we've had this conversation. And I just want as many people to know that they're capable despite their circumstances as possible. I feel like I should like travel the country and just like find these random people and be like, no, you can do this. You can do whatever you want to do. Like,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, you've already kind of started on that path, especially with your team where you go and work with others and help them do that as well, right? You help them, pass up their adversities and recognize that their limits aren't really their true limits. They're much further ahead. Now, how does this work? What you've learned, especially, I know you're driven a lot with sports, but there's also a lot more about you that people may or may not know. So, what are a couple things about Ashley that are outside of the sport that people don't know about?
I love to mentor youth, whether it's, I do a lot of work with visually impaired high school students as they transition into college, and also elementary age students as they transition into high school. I've kind of found this passion for like, I've gone through this, I've been in your shoes. I know there are a lot of kids that don't understand what you're going through because most of these kids are mainstreamed. And so I love to kind of be that like voice of reason, or just the like person that can come along and be like, hey, like, I get it, this sucks, but like your situation's not changing. So like, let's see how we can make the best of it kind of thing. So I find a lot of joy in getting to do that.
What else is it? So if we were to put you in a period where you're not in school and you're not helping those individuals and you're not training or helping someone else train, what is Ashley doing?
Oh man, that's a good question. Wow, I haven't even thought about that. Because you literally just take it away. Like when you take those things away, it's like those are like my main focuses in life right now.
Well, you blog, right? So you blog.
I do blog, yes.
And if you're as a listener, you can actually go find her blog at howashleyseesit.wordpress.com. And I think I love that. It's HLWHASHLEYSEESIT.wordpress.com. So tell me about your blog.
The blog was originally for a school project, and I've decided to keep writing for it, just because it was so well received. I'm going to basically take, like everyday situations or, questions that I get often, and I expand upon them, through the perspective of someone who can't see. So, I wrote a post about, like food service. I wrote, this really great post that I'm probably the most proud of. And it's titled when people tell me I don't act blind. And it kind of addresses the, this barrier of, people trying to kind of conform to what I would like to refer to as sighted culture, and how a lot of us are able to do that really well as blind people, but, it doesn't come without a lot of effort, and planning and work. And so I kind of shed some light on what I like to refer to as my behind the scenes day to day, that my peers and my friends don't necessarily get to see.
Made me think of something. Would you agree that I guess I say this because of prior conversations we've had, but it just made me think that sometimes seeing is actually blinding, because I wonder if there's so much in the world that consumes us with what we're seeing that we don't see it as clearly as probably you would
Hmm.
actually. And
And
I found that kind of interesting. What
yeah.
is, what is your legacy? At the end of the day, what is it that you want to be known for? What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for my character, the kind of person that I am, and the impact that I leave on people's lives. The sports stuff is all secondary to me. It's a great platform for me to make a difference and to share my story and to talk about challenging limits and breaking down those adversity based barriers. But when push comes to shove, I want people to know that I'm a good person, that I want the best for everybody that I come across in life, and that I work hard in training for athletics as I do in the classroom and as I do in life, because it's more than just swim, bike, and run. I want to be the super well-rounded individual.
Yeah, wow. So you mentioned and that's profound, and I think at an early age you found something that I believe many people have lived their whole life to not find, and it is helping other people. Really is it's why we're here, right? I mean,
Right.
we're here to make a difference. But you also made a little comment there about challenging your limits. How do you go about challenging your limits?
A lot of different ways. So I challenge myself, my limits athletically, in training, in racing. I challenge myself through my speaking. TEDx was terrifying. I didn't want to do it. I had to be talked into doing it, actually.
And you did
But
well.
it was a great experience, and I'm glad I did it. Challenge myself academically. I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to go to college and to work really hard and do athletics at the varsity level. Just putting myself in situations that are constantly going to stretch me physically, mentally, emotionally, to make me a better person.
Yeah, that's bound to be quite rewarding, just the same. So when you have an individual who, for example, some of the people that you've worked with, you said you had someone that had lost their leg. How do you talk to those individuals and bring them up? What is it that you say, or is there something that just seems to resonate with most people that really helps them lift up pretty quickly and get on their feet and start to do things they never thought they were ever going to do again?
I think you have to meet them where they're at. And I think you do that with empathy, which is really hard to do for a lot of people. I think because of the experiences that I've had with my blindness, obviously I relate best to people who have lost their sight. But with other athletes, I think it's just coming alongside them and being like, hey, like, I know where you're at really sucks right now. And I know you probably don't believe me, but I promise you it can be better than it is right now. Just give me a chance, give this a chance. We can fail together. And even if we fail together, we're going to learn something from it. And so you'll already be ahead of the game.
Did you have this mindset early on? Is this something that your family kind of ingrained into you? Was this positive is the only way? I mean, knowing that there's things in life that are unfortunate, but we can find a better way to look at them. Is that something early on for you?
I think it goes back to just how I was raised and the fact that my parents, they never had a blind kid. Like we were their first, as triplets, like we were their first kids. And like they didn't know, there were no other blind people in my family. They were like, well, all right, we're like in our early 20s. We're just going to do this and do the best that we can with what we have. We don't know what we don't know kind of thing. And that really, it put me in situations that I think looking back, they're like, wow, I can't believe we actually let you do that. But like it forces you to grow and learn and like, no, like everything is not perfect. And I go through periods in my life where I'm like, wow, like being blind really sucks. Like this is just really heavy stuff. This is a lot to carry. And it's just kind of like that shift in perspective, and athletics does that for me. The volunteer work I get to do does that for me. It kind of reminds you of like where you were, where you're at, where you could be. So I think it all just goes back to how I was raised and the experiences that I had growing up.
So sports kind of brought that inner warrior out of you to where you could excel and see that progress and feel it, right?
Yeah, especially with triathlon, where when I'm with a guide. I think running in particular, running or tandem cycling, where I'm with a guide, the playing field is leveled, especially on a bike. The playing field is leveled. I don't have to see anything. I can literally be on the back of a tandem, see nothing. All I have to do is pedal. I don't feel blind. I've got this person in front of me that's doing all of the steering, but like, I don't have to worry about my lack of sight hindering us, because if somebody was sighted in on the back of a tandem, they would be in the exact same position that I was in.
Yeah.
They would just be able to look out and see the scenery.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting concept. What are you going to school for?
Communications and psychology.
What are you going to do with that?
I'm not 100% sure yet. I want to end up going back to grad school for something psychology. I'm thinking school counseling right now, just because of the demographic that I like to work with.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, whatever you do is going to be give. It's all give. It sounds like that's everything that you've said resonates with the fact that I'm here for something much larger than me. While I am the medium, my sports is helping to drive that, but you're here for everyone else.
Yeah, it's not all about me. And I try to maintain that in every aspect of my life.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess we'll wrap this up here in just a minute, but people here, I'll go this way. When I see your pictures, I've never seen you without a smile on your face. I've never seen you. I would guess to say that you're probably every day and generally speaking, probably most days, really happy.
Yeah. I love what I get to do.
Yeah, well, it's definitely shows, and obviously people resonate with you so well because of that, and I know that you're so well known. What's the next 3 to 5 years look like for you?
It's an interesting question. I'm finished up my junior year. I'm headed into my senior year of college, and education's always been my priority. I'm considering going straight on to grad school, which would kind of cover that next 2 to 3 years of my life. And then athletically, right now I am pipelined for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. I'm very much a believer in being open-minded to what that could lead, but also knowing that I may or may not be in Tokyo. I have not made any game. It's kind of like an in-the-moment decision for me as I go through my day-to-day and my training. I'm fortunate to have great opportunities through USA Triathlon and Dare to Try. So we'll see what happens athletically, but academics are maintaining to be my priority in life.
So it's academics and athletics, and that's why you're kind of balancing, or you're kind of weighing going one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, makes sense. Well, Ashley, I appreciate your time. Any final thoughts or things you want to talk about before we end this podcast?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered everything.
Well, you are an inspiration. I appreciate you more than you will ever know. And I talk about you more than you'll probably ever know. So, whether you go to Tokyo or whether you stay right where you're at and you finish up your education to help other people, I know that you will change lives forever. And for that, I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Craig.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please go over to iTunes and rate it. In fact, if you liked it that much, share it with a friend, a family member, someone who you feel could get something out of this podcast. At the end of the day, that's what it's for anyway. If you would like to reach me, you can find me on my website at craigwillard.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Craig Willard Coaching, or you can email me at craig@craigwillard.com. Take care.